Okay, yeah, so it's practice mode. Attendees cannot join until you broadcast.
All right. How about the other panelists?
They should be able to join.
You know how you do that?
Hello, this is John O'Connor from 3D Asset Management. Thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar, the first in a two-part series, The Race to Scalability, New Era of Investment Management Outsourcing. I'm the president of 3D Asset Management and one of the founders, and I'd like to welcome you all to this two-part program around the theme of building and measuring value in your financial services practice. I'll speak a little bit about part two, measuring value, at the end of the session. First, I'd like to give the obligatory commercial. For those of you that are unfamiliar with 3D Asset Management, we've been in business since 2006 as an ETF strategist. We operate on several platforms and in the 401k space. Our flagship really, though, is our turnkey asset management program where we allow advisors to outsource everything from account setup to trading and transfer, fee billing, performance reporting. We get to know the advisor. Our operations team gets to know you and your assistants and office staff, and we are your outsourced back office in essence. So financial advisors are business managers, whether one is running a large firm with a nationwide coverage or a small office with 1, 2, or 3 people, or simply one's own book of business within a firm. Regardless of your size, you cannot do it all, however. You delegate, you outsource, or you do both. Over my some odd years in the business, I have seen I've been part of several types of organizations and have seen just about every business model out there. A recurring theme in the successful ones is play to your strengths and spend your time focusing on those things that'll provide the highest payback or manage the greatest risks. Those tasks or functions that can be effectively delegated or outsourced should be handed off. Here at 3D, we have the privilege of working with many great advisors all over the country. I can tell you that some of these advisors run a very efficient business and have set themselves up with an almost unlimited growth potential. But some, unfortunately, are working so long and so hard on too many tasks that they effectively limit their scalability. They also limit the viability of a successful succession plan or business sale at some point. I'd like to introduce today's speakers and get going. Laura Gregg is Director of Intermediary Client Development at Northern Trust Asset Management and is responsible for growing Northern Trust's presence in the intermediary market. In 2010, Laura launched the Advisor Research Program, which continues today. The recent results of that program are what we're going to be learning about today. Joining Laura is Scott Morrison. Scott is a financial advisor with over 20 years experience in the wealth management business and is a partner at Morrison Nordman and Associates in East Lansing, Michigan. Scott's firm manages those things in-house that play to their strengths, such as teaching, coaching, managing client relationships, and outsources those functions where they can find qualified partners at reasonable prices. If anyone in the audience has questions for Laura or Scott, please type them into the questions bar at the top of your screen. We'll dive into the questions as we have time for at the end of the Laura and Scott's prepared remarks. Laura and Scott, you can take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, John. I'm really delighted to be here today with 3D Asset Management. 3D has been a wonderful partner to work with, and we really appreciate the support that they've provided around this very important topic. And I'm also happy that Scott Morrison is joining us, as he and his partner worked with Northern Trust last year to provide an advisor's perspective on why using an external manager, what using an external manager has meant to their practice. So, Scott, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Laura. We enjoyed our dialogue the last time we got together, and I look forward again to it today. I also value the strong relationship that we have with 3D, and I consider them one of our strongest resources when it comes to meeting our clients' needs.
Great. So today what I'd like to do is provide you a brief overview and history of the research that John mentioned and kind of explain why Northern Trust is interested in this. We've really seen a marked movement of advisors turning to third-party asset managers since the 2008 financial crisis. And Northern Trust FlexShares, we're really agnostic. We serve both advisors and asset managers. But as we saw this movement, we really wanted to understand the reasons that advisors were choosing this model and how they were working with their external managers. So in 2009, we started trying to research this and found that there really wasn't much information out there in the industry. So we began our survey program. And over the years, we've surveyed a broad swath of advisors by type and channel and varying AUM levels. So today I'll highlight some of the research. We won't have time to get through it all. It's really quite exhaustive. So I encourage you to reach out to 3D to get a copy of our white paper if you're interested in learning more. But today the topics that we'll discuss is why advisors are considering and using third-party managers, and for advisors that make that move and begin to outsource investment management, are the benefits that they're receiving consistent with the drivers that took them there in the first place. We'll also discuss satisfaction with outsourcing as a solution and the impact it's had on end clients. And finally, we'll talk about the advisors that choose to keep the investment management function in-house and the commitment that they're making to that model. So let's get into it. Obviously, the reasons that advisors turn to external managers varies by firm. But what we found in our survey last year was very loud and very clear that advisors want and really need more time. And as you can see in the bar chart there, nearly 60% of advisors that we surveyed stated that time generically was a key driver for considering an outsourced solution. You can also see there were other drivers as well. Advisors really wanted access to investment strategies that they didn't have the capability to offer in-house. They wanted access to alternative investments for their clients, and they wanted time specifically devote to their clients, and then specifically they wanted time that they could devote to business development. So really, in essence, advisors are using external managers, as John alluded to before, to help them address growing demands and to achieve better scalability. Scott, would you mind sharing some details on your firm's decision to use an external manager? When did you feel the need, and what were the specific items that drove you?
Well, I would say a number of years ago, we adopted a wealth management philosophy that really required a more intimate understanding of our clients' needs and goals, and it's a very purposeful way of going about getting to know our clients. We have a discovery process followed by an investment planning meeting, followed by a place where we can actually shake hands and do the paperwork. And up until that point, time is obviously the driving factor there, because it's the one thing that our clients want from us the most. We wanted to have a bigger impact in their lives, and when we found ourselves with some of the day-to-day minutia that a business like this can create in terms of paperwork and compliance and all those kind of things, we found ourselves not able to do the things that we wanted to do most with our clients. They wanted our time. They wanted to have that relationship with us. And I think the biggest thing we found in being able to outsource these kind of things to folks like 3D was being able to spend more time with our clients and finding out, what it is they needed the most.
Thank you. So let's discuss some of the growing demands that advisors are facing and why they are looking for more help from outside. Obviously, client demands continue to grow. I don't think that that's probably a surprise to anybody on this call. Our clients and all of us, quite frankly, are getting quite used to 24/7 service. And we all want it from our service providers, whether that's through online banking or doctors' portals or with our financial advisor. More clients are also expecting a technology interface and the ability to communicate via social media and other means that none of us really would have thought of just a few years ago. And clients, as Scott talked about, they really want focused time with you, but they also want it on their schedule. There's also the regulatory demands. We've made it through money market reform, the DOL rule continues, but really what this is all leading to is a finer focus on fiduciary responsibility. And the DOL rule, as you all know, is really impacting product due diligence. Advisors are spending more hours trying to understand if a product does what it's supposed to do and how it will perform when it's put in a larger investment portfolio. And this assessment can really be consuming. Then there's fee compression. Advisors are not only faced with fee compression from a product standpoint, but also in terms of trying to right price their business to focus on other revenue generating areas, whether that's advice or planning. Scott, would you like to weigh in on some of these demands?
Well, I would just say that, some of the things you just mentioned are obviously what reinforces why we took the steps that we did. Being able to hand off those kind of responsibilities to a third party allowed us, once we'd met with our clients and really talked about those needs, we could also then incorporate our professional network into that, meaning our CPAs and attorneys and those kind of things. And as you know, a lot of that kind of communication with a client and a CPA or his attorney or his advisor is kind of one way. And so this allows us the time I can act as the point man and kind of coordinate as their chief financial advisor, so to speak. I can coordinate with myself, the CPAs and the attorneys on the client's behalf. And, when I'm able to do those things, I think the clients are feeling like the planning is a lot more pointed and purposeful, and the investment stuff is something where it's like we can just hand that off to say, listen, as your CFO, I'm on the same side of the table as you are with the client, and that we're monitoring and we're always looking to address their goals. And when we have that professional network focused on that kind of thing, then the investment stuff ends up being just a part of that conversation.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think you've, if we could go back one slide, it would be great. I think you've really, hit on the importance of external management as a way to scale one's practice. This external management solution can allow, and this is stuff that we've heard from our survey, but it really enables advisors to provide excellent customer service and to also provide very competitive investment management that they might not have been able to do in-house. And importantly, time to grow their client base. This extra time is really enabling by advisors, as you mentioned, Scott, to focus on what they do best. And when we're out and we're speaking to advisors, we always want to know, or I always want to know, what is it that makes your firm unique from the other RIA practice down the street or across town? And if what they say is not investment management, but we know that they're managing all the investments in-house, then we really encourage the advisors to assess the time that they're spending on that function to make sure they're aligned appropriately for where they can add the greatest amount of value to their clients. Next slide. So time, experience, and creativity are really crucial to successfully managing client portfolios. Many advisors that we speak to really don't have the scale to offer a full range of investment options. So working in part or in whole with an external manager can really complement their in-house capabilities and enhance the client experience. Advisors are wanting a wider range of solutions to offer to their clients. And this has been particularly pronounced in the low interest rate environment that we've been in for so long. Many of the advisors in our survey, and even those that I've spoken to, talk about their ability to find more creative options through their external providers. And advisors want more investment support as well. They really want opportunities for improved investment results. They want support for tactical allocation. Outsourcing isn't necessarily an all or nothing proposition. They're looking for tax management expertise and institutional quality due diligence and monitoring. Scott, you told me a story last year, and I hope you don't mind, but I repeat it pretty frequently because it really highlights the importance of reinforcing the value that you provide to clients by choosing to use a third-party investment management model. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, I remember it. I'm glad you found that helpful. Obviously, having more time allows us to make a bigger impact in the lives of our clients, and they feel therefore connected to us. One of the ways that I've found especially effective in reminding them of our business model is when we're on a one-on-one meeting, the story you allude to, I ask them if they know what's going on in the market while we're talking. We could be in another room and shutting the door and not really aware of anything that's going on in the market at the time. And of course, they'd look at me cross-eyed and they say, well, no, I don't know. And I said, well, that's okay, because I don't really know what's going on right at this very moment either. I knew what was happening when I left the room and came in to talk with them, but I don't know exactly what's happening during that hour to hour and a half we might be having a conversation. So I remind them that's why we have the wealth management team that we have in place. That's why we outsource to a third party, so that there's eyes on the ball at all times. It's why we're able to sit here and talk about what's most important to them, and that in that way everyone is able to do what they do best.
And I'm sure your clients really appreciate that, and I appreciate having that story to relay to other advisors that I speak to. One of the, finally, advisors also told us that they want access to innovative portfolio solutions, portfolios that they either don't have the time or the resources to develop and then manage in-house. I mean, as we all know, gone are the days where an optimal client portfolio looked like a 60-40 split of stocks and bonds. And outsourcing is really allowing advisors to deliver more effective portfolio strategies to their clients. We're also seeing that advisors want to be more strategic in providing portfolios that are customized to the unique needs of their clients, whether that's income generation, ESG, or other niche strategies. Scott, what are your thoughts on the investment solutions front?
Well, I think the need for a range of solutions is a really important point. I mean, more than ever, employees today, people approaching retirement, are faced with the challenge of trying to figure out how they're going to manage without a pension. And they're used to having 60 to 80% of their income replaced with a pension. So now that they're left to figure that out and how to manage their, in the 401k environment, is real important, why we need these range of solutions. What I'm seeing and what I value with a third-party manager is that I've worked with is that their ability to come up with creative ideas of how to structure a retirement plan so that we can overcome some of those challenges. All of us have seen a lot of changes in the markets and what is available to our clients, especially in terms of garnering income, but also preserving capital. And so at the same time, we're also dealing with inflation and longevity. People are living longer, inflation is going to come back, so we've got to figure out how to address that. And those are the kind of things that I look to my third-party manager to present solutions to help solve for this problem.
Great, thanks so much. I mean, I think, it just goes back to where is your time best spent, and some of the solutions that we have to come up with these days are not the 60-40, they are complex, and they do take time and resources and talent. So now let's get into some more survey results. The graphic that you're seeing illustrates the benefits that outsourcers cited. And the great news is that the benefits that they cite are really aligned with the drivers that said that they told us drove them to consider an external manager. Advisors said that they needed more time, and that was why they were choosing to outsource. And the most commonly reported benefit at 52% was more time. In addition, some of the other benefits included being able to access and provide a consistent investment management process, access to a wider range of products. Again, the institutional quality due diligence and monitoring and competitive investment results. And we really expect that these benefits are going to be even more impactful over time. We all know that there'll be continued price pressure, and this will increase the need for more economies and efficiencies within our practices. And as regulatory pressures increase, so will the need for more legal and compliance oversight. And an important point, I think, is that client preferences are going to continue to evolve, and external managers can really help you keep your offerings ahead of the curve. So, you know, in this slide, it's all about the benefits, right? But we are fair and balanced when we go out and survey advisors, and so we also ask them to share with us the drawbacks of using an external manager. And there were actually very, very few advisors that answered that question. In fact, 7. And across the 7 responses that we received, they were all different. So there was nothing statistically we could provide as a counter to this. And just for a framework, there were 177 advisors that were willing to tell us about the benefits that they were reaping. And I don't know about you, but I'm always, you know, after I have a bad experience somewhere, I'm always willing to go on Yelp and share my comments. So I thought that this was pretty telling that so many were anxious to tell us about the benefits, and very few told us about the drawbacks. Scott, maybe you can provide, you know, a sense of what you've experienced since you began outsourcing.
Well, I would say in my career, it's always been, you know, trying to duplicate my best clients. And so I would say, again, I keep reiterating this, but I think the biggest impact, again, is that time that I've had to be with those clients so that I can have those bigger impacts in their lives, and that relationship is strong enough that, you know, they're happier clients. And when they're happier clients, they make better referrals. And of course, better referrals, you know, that's more opportunities for me to gather more assets for the business. As I mentioned before, our clients feel more connected to us, you know, because we can spend more time focused on them, and we have the time to intimately know our clients, their concerns and their goals and objectives. So we can help them achieve all that's really important to them.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about the changing regulatory environment. I mean, admittedly, there have been a lot of starts and stops in the implementation of the DOL rule. However, it's already really had very important implications for advisors. Retail investors are becoming more and more familiar with the concept of the fiduciary standard, and the advisors we surveyed are turning to external managers for support in understanding the rule and also complying with it. And in our survey, 46% of advisors cited that they expected to either stop altogether or reduce their commission-based sales, versus just under a quarter of advisors who expected not to make changes as a result of the DOL rule. So, you know, we're seeing more advisors begin to be more open and turn to a fee-based arrangement with clients. And we really expect this trend to continue with the eventual rollout of the DOL rule. The investing public is becoming more familiar, and really they're accepting of this arrangement, and it's a positive thing in the mind of the retail investor. And the use of external solutions can really provide a lot of aid in the time and the cost of compliance requirements around this. Is there anything you wanted to add to the regulatory framework, Scott?
I think you kind of you covered it there. I would concur that we've seen a lot less focus for ourselves on any kind of commission sales, unless there's, you know, some real insurance needs for the client. But with with the DOL rule, I think I'd like to think we were out a little bit ahead of that in terms of the fiduciary responsibility of the clients, and I think with the amount of due diligence you have to do with a client, the third party asset manager, and then having those other relationships that you have because of the time that you get in the day to speak with the client's attorney, their CPA, their family members, those kind of things. Those can only add to knowing your client better and addressing what the real essence of the rules are.
Great, thanks very much. So, as I said, Northern Trust doesn't have a vested interest in a certain business model. And so in all of our surveys, we also ask many questions to the advisors who keep the function in-house. And outsourcing just isn't right for every single advisor. And over the 7 years of our survey, the primary reason that advisors have given us for keeping the investment management function in-house is because they feel it's core to their value proposition. And so, it's really critical for advisors, again, to honestly evaluate what their best value proposition is to clients. And if an advisor is adding notable alpha to their clients' investment portfolios, then perhaps outsourcing is not going to be a fit for that firm. Historically, we've always asked the question on, if you're not currently outsourcing, what would have to happen to change your opinion? And advisors have historically said, adamantly, there's no way they're changing their mind. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. However, in 2016, we asked that same question, and for the first time, we saw a real sea change. About 58% of the non-outsourcers told us that while they're currently not outsourcing, they actually have not ruled it out completely. That really surprised me, given all of the surveys that we had done up until that point and gotten quite a different answer. So for advisors that are choosing to manage investments in-house, they really are committed to this. In 2010, they cited spending about 15 hours on investment management functions. By the time we surveyed advisors in 2016, that number almost doubled. And the average hours spent for investment management functions had reached about 28 hours per week. So clearly the advisors who are keeping this in-house have made a very strong commitment to doing that. And as we talked about before, there's only so many hours in a day. So they're banking on investment management being their best value proposition. So some final thoughts. You can see some graphics up there, and which I'm going to discuss, but the advisors in our survey that are using external managers cite reaping some really important benefits. Once they begin outsourcing, it's rare that they turn back. In fact, 60% have been outsourcing for more than 5 years, and we survey every other year, and so this rate continues to grow over time. And again, back to scalability, outsourcing really provides advisors the ability to scale their practice. 41% are outsourcing between 75 and 100% of client AUM. 52% have been able to grow their client base because they've had more time and a competitive investment solution to offer. And 34% have been able to decrease fees that they charge to clients. And the satisfaction continues to grow. Advisors who outsource have always been greatly satisfied with that decision. However, in 2016, that reached a satisfaction rate of 96%. And in some of the finer AUM segments, it actually was 100% satisfaction. So the advisory market is really evolving quite quickly, and it's important to remain relevant. But to do so, advisors really need to keep up with the changing landscape. Investment management price pressure, as we talked about, is really unlikely to reverse course. So, we encourage everyone to determine how advice may provide a bigger component of your revenue strategy. And we encourage advisors to keep up with new technologies. We talked more earlier about the 24/7 access that we're all used to. There's a lot of robo and fintech management tools that can aid in advice and planning services, and those are going to continue to develop, and as well as new communication tools. Please use these to your benefit, whether it's social media, FaceTime, webinars like we're on today. You want to communicate with your clients in the way that's most comfortable for them. And we all know regulatory issues will continue, and with more regulation, it's going to correspond to more time and possibly more human resources to manage. So consider whether or not, some of this can be reduced through the use of an external manager. Again, it all boils down to the need for increased scalability, and outsourced investment management is helping some advisors meet this need by freeing up time to focus on what it is that they do best. Scott, anything you'd like to add to this?
No, I think you covered all of that one pretty well. I think each of those bullet points that you hit are right on in terms of our own experience, and I would encourage anyone out there to consider these issues very strongly. I think it'll add to their opportunities.
Well, great, thank you, John.
Well, thank you so much, Laura and Scott. We've accumulated a few questions here that I'd like to run by you, and maybe you can shed some light on for our audience. And you in the audience, if you have any more questions, I've got the Q&A box open here, and you can just first, what's the reaction of clients been when their advisor begins to outsource investment management functions? And Laura, what do you see? And Scott, maybe how did you handle it, if you can remember back that far when you started outsourcing the investment management portion of your business?
Sure, John. I'll kick us off. In our 2014 survey, we focused specifically on the client experience, and the majority of advisors, I'm pretty sure it was over 90%, reported that their clients' initial reaction to outsourcing was positive. And about 80% reported that there was actually no loss of clients or firm revenue as a result of the change in investment management. Scott, what was your experience?
I would say it's the same. We have done nothing but grow. I don't think there was we didn't really have or experience any pushback from the client. In fact, I think I just go back to the time, what they really want from me. They really enjoy having time to sit down with me and talk about things that sometimes they're not even investment related. Sometimes they're just about other issues in their lives, and where the finances are a part of it, they're not entirely all of it. And so the relationships are so much stronger with this kind of thing. I would say that's probably where whenever I've sat down with anyone and talked about taking it to a third party, obviously they're looking at the performance, they're looking at how their accounts are doing, but more importantly, they want somebody to hold their hand and be able to educate them as to what's going on in the markets. And when I can just educate them about the third-party advisor and the investment, the sub-accounts in there, without actually having to do the allocating myself and taking the time that would be necessary, the extreme amount of time that would be necessary on an individual basis to do all the investing to the client's objectives, that was a daunting thing. We worked with a lot of federal employees. We had kind of a niche business where we were marketing and to these different federal agencies and doing a lot of education. And so I think anyone, especially who has kind of a target market in particular, where they need to do a lot more education with their clients or relationship building, this is where this kind of thing really is important, to have a third party that can take that responsibility for the investing off your hands.
That's great. Here's another one. Somebody writes in, how do I vet these outsourced partners? I am a small RIA with no due diligence department for initial and ongoing review. Either of you, or I might shed some light there as well.
I don't, John, I'd like to, how did we get into a relationship with you? I don't even remember. I just know that we did our due diligence. We've looked at a number of different platforms, and I think it's, each platform is a little bit different. With our philosophies investing happen to mesh with 3Ds. And I think for every advisor, they've got to go through that process of doing their due diligence and finding a company that, or finding a firm that, was most closely in philosophy to themselves.
Yeah, I would agree. As a fiduciary at both ends, so you're a fiduciary to your client, we're a fiduciary to your client as well. And as it regards the account that we're managing, it's process. You don't have to have the best performance in the world or the best metrics in the world, as long as you've got a prudent process that's right in the definition of a fiduciary. We're kind of blessed. We've got our chief investment officer is a former consultant with Wilshire, and that's what his job was, managing the due diligence process of part of Wilshire and vetting outside managers. If anybody out there would like some help, I mean, as you can imagine, we go through the due diligence process with new broker dealers and larger RIAs on a regular basis. I could easily genericize a questionnaire that we get in, and so you can't tell who it came from, but it's got all the right questions. And feel free to send it back and have us complete it, or use it to paper your file with your due diligence with other managers. But I would say the due diligence and vetting process of an outsourced management partner is going to be taking you less time over the next year, 2 years, 5 years than managing the investments on a day-to-day basis.
Agreed.
Here's another one. She asks, how does outsourcing contribute to managing client behavior? It seems like hand-holding the advisor provides keeps investors from reacting in a negative way and hurting their long-term investment goals.
I'm not sure I understand that the question is quite as well, but I in response to hand-holding or education, I guess I can spend more time with clients explaining to them what it is they own within their portfolio. Why they own it, what changes have taken place in their portfolio, and how that's not necessarily in reaction to the market, but in anticipation of what their goals and objectives are, and where we're able to talk more about risk tolerance and time horizon and those kind of things, because I don't know that they really want to get into the weeds about the specific holdings of an ETF portfolio or what the inner workings of that are. I think it's more about being able to say, listen, we have a plan. We have a short-term plan, we have a mid-term plan, we have a long-term plan, and with this third party, we have portfolios that address each of those objectives. So, for me, I think the biggest thing is clients don't necessarily want to know that how the engine works. They just want to know that they can trust their advisor, that their advisor has done their due diligence and really determined what's most important in their lives and built a plan, targeting those things. And at least that's what's worked for us.
Well, that's great. It's 3:40 at the moment. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So we've got a couple other questions. I'll email the answers to those people in particular. If well, I'd like to thank Laura and Scott again so much for your time and time in preparation of this. I want to remind everybody that's listening that this is part one of a two-part value package, if you will. The second part will take place on Wednesday, October 25th. Gladstone Associates, a mergers and acquisitions advisory firm that specializes in the independent financial advisory industry, we'll be discussing practice valuations and trends and what metrics matter most in succession planning and purchasing or selling or merging investment advisory practices. So if you didn't get a copy of the white paper from Northern Trust when you initially signed up for this webinar, send us an email or give us a call. 860-291-1998, option 2, and we'll get it out to you via email. This session is being recorded, so if you'd like to listen to it again, or if somebody in your office wants to listen to it, we will be sending out an email with a link to the recording, as well as posting the link on the advisor section of our website. And you can play it back anytime. So with that, I'd like to conclude. Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you so much, Scott. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and we look forward to another robust audience in October for our part 2 of the value package. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.